Good evening, everyone. This is Rhea again, and I am reporting to you on Module 3, our reflective blog for this week. I just want to clear the air. Yes, I'm at work, but I'm on my dinner break, so I am not on the clock. I know some of you may be wondering or questioning that, so I am definitely on my dinner break. So let's get started. I am going to be as organized as I can, but to answer the questions, I do have some references that I'll be looking at. And hopefully I'll make sense when all this is over. So looking at the questions, the first one was talking about identifying on the leadership skills questionnaire what I would use to secure needed staff. So by looking at the leadership questionnaire and identifying the kind of strengths that I have, one of my strengths was effective at problem solving. So if that was an area that I needed to secure is staffing, I would use my problem solving skills to figure out a way to give some incentives, possibly recruiting, having people identify possible prospects and bringing those names to me. So I would use my problem solving skills to help secure new staffing. I'm also really good at filling out forms and working with details. Those come pretty easily for me. So I would be good about as far as posting and putting the requisitions out and the descriptions online and making sure that the appropriate information was put out there to recruit new staff. And then when resumes came in, I would be able to organize them appropriately, look through them, and do phone interviews if needed, and then have them come in for interviews. So my strengths come with working with details and making sure that I've kept everything together and organized. Another thing that I would use, one of my strengths, is managing people and resources. And so I scored pretty high on that, and I feel like I have a pretty good idea and a heartbeat of what's going on with my staff. So using the resources that I have available to me, coordinating that with HR and my manager or director, I think would be important in formulating a plan on how to get new staff to come. So those would be some of the skill sets that I would use from the leadership questionnaire on recruiting new staff. And I'll just touch on this now. I did complete the questionnaire, and I was pretty surprised, but I landed my highest score in the administrative. I always thought that maybe I would be a little bit more on the interpersonal, but I do have a serious mind when I'm in charge. So I happen to score higher on the administrative side, which shows that I have technical competence, I maintain my resources, and I'm very good at managing people. So those were my strengths. Another question that was told for us to reflect on this week is how would I use the published literature in the process? I am not a manager, but I would love to be a manager one day. So how would I use the published literature in the process as far as being a strong leader? So I was able to pull up a couple different resources, and I guess what was most shocking to me is just, I guess, the difference. Maybe I had it misunderstood. I always considered the place that I worked that we were in an interdisciplinary location and organization and department. But after reading that the interdisciplinary team process expands the multidisciplinary team through collaborative communication rather than shared communication, I really felt like that's who we were, whereas the description for a multidisciplinary team just includes the concepts of a gatekeeper faculty member who determines which other disciplines are invited to participate in the independent discipline specific team, and they all conduct different assessments, planning, provisions, etc. So by just the sheer definition, I thought, well, I'm definitely more of an interdisciplinary person, an approach, and a place that I work. But after looking at some of the articles that I found, and I found a really great one about the operating room, which is where I work, it looks like we really are a multidisciplinary department. So that was encouraging to me that we were kind of doing some of the things correctly. And it says that the article that I found and I was looking at says that it improves patient outcomes, which is certainly what we always want to do, is improve patient outcomes. Identify the levels and departments that you would need to work with in order to be effective in my role. So if I were the manager, some of the departments that I would absolutely have to be working with would be HR, human resources, because they are the direct line on helping us get people secured and employed and trained as far as into the hospital setting, putting out the requisitions, putting out the offers, doing all the background searches. So you would make sure I'd want to have a really good communication and team approach with human resources. And also, just being a supervisor, I have run into so many different issues with behaviors and employee issues and calling out, etc., and how to walk through an algorithm and a disciplinary process possibly for each employee. So they've been a great resource for me. And so human resources would definitely be one that I'd want to have. I think payroll would be another one. Everybody comes to work to make an income and a living so they can support their family. And from time to time, there's issues with payroll and not getting paid correctly or having an issue. And so I would want to make sure I have really good communication with the payroll department so that we could hit these issues right away and make sure that it doesn't escalate and make people unhappy, because it's people's money at hand. So those would be two other departments that I for sure would want to work with. I'd also want to work with the education department. I think that they would be a great resource for me to help my nurses who wanted to pursue higher education, my surgical technologists who wanted to be certified, just a personal growth. I think they would be a great department to work with as well. And when you invest in your employees, I think they're more satisfied and the retention is longer, so that would help combat the need for more employees. So the last question here is, explain if you feel you would have a preference for a vertical or a horizontal structure in a particular model and why. So I think I touched on that briefly, but I feel that I like the vertical structure better. I think it's just my personality. I think it's just how I was raised and brought up. I kind of fall in the millennial range, but not really. Millennials tend to want the horizontal. They want everything equal, shared, back and forth. I'm not saying that's bad, but I do think in a setting like the operating room, a vertical, you do need the top down. You need somebody that makes decisions and holds people accountable, and then that comes down to the manager, and the manager to the supervisors, supervisors to the staff. It does not mean that we don't hear concerns or have the opportunity to talk to them. It just means that I think it's the best approach. And then to talk about the model, I think we are great at the multidisciplinary approach. And so I want to share just a few things that I pulled away from my article, and I will post the reference also. Multidisciplinary approach in a hospital is like a well-oiled machine, and it helps to prevent the silo effect, which is so common in the operating room, and I'm sure other departments, where everybody's just kind of doing their own thing to get their job done, and so we all silo each other. So multidisciplinary effect is a well-oiled machine, and I think that it includes all staff members. So we deal with nurses, surgical technologists, anesthesiologists, certified nurse anesthetists. We have patient care technicians. I'm sure I forgot some people, but there's just so many people involved every time to take care of a patient. And so that really helps to keep the lines of communication, helps us share our decision making on what's best for the patient, and especially when we have something go wrong, we need to make sure that we are communicating effectively. So I'm going to touch on a few things here, talking about the operating room specifically. That's where my most experience is, and so it helps to, like I said, eliminate the silo mentality, and it also improves students and team members' behaviors and attitudes because they feel like they are being listened to. Like I said, I'm okay with the top-down vertical effect, and that's typically what we have with surgeons, but it is important for them to have that behavior that's appropriate so that people feel like they can be heard as far as when it comes to patient care. It says that we should standardize as much as our work as we can, and that helps prevents frustration. But when we change things, to have the team approach as far as giving input, but at the ultimate decision, having that decision made and then brought to the staff. One of the things that's stressed in this article was a multidisciplinary team approach, like a hybrid suite model, which I am familiar with. For example, the cath lab. We do heart procedures with heart nurse and surgical technologists, as well as the cardiologist, radiologist, techs, all together. So we're doing radiology and operations all in the same room, and it is a great approach for the patient. I'm going to hit a few more things here. Just talking about the timeouts and the attitudes and all the benefits. to having a multidisciplinary approach. So I hope I answered all the questions. I think I did. So just in a nutshell, I am a administrative. My leadership questionnaire pegged me as administrative skills. That was my highest strength, and I rated in the high range with that. I like the multidisciplinary team approach, which is my favorite model. I like the vertical approach, which is more of the top-down, and I have found some good literature to back that up. So I hope you guys have a good night. I'll talk to you later. Bye.